About 1 minute. Got a few folks. All right, with the sound of the gavel, we're officially calling our meeting to order of the Staff Senate today, it's not Thursday, Tuesday, November the 9th, 2021. Obviously, I'm not Dr. Shelley Dempsey. I'm Rashandra James, Staff Senate Vice President. I will be presiding over today's meeting. We have established our quorum according to our parliamentarian. And quickly, before we get started, I want to make a couple of adjustments to the agenda. The first thing is obviously that I'll be presiding today as vice president. And then secondly, under our reports of the committees, I have under communications, it should be Bailey Watts and Lauren Angelo Duck and not Dwan Sellers. That was a special presentation, and I do regret that I did not edit that. So for communications, it should be Bailey Watts and Lauren and Senator Watts and Senator Angelo Duck. Welcome back. I think I saw Allie Mathwig somewhere. Welcome. Oh, there you go. Welcome back. Allie had baby Mathwig, baby boy Mathwig. When was he born? July 28th. So we haven't seen Allie in quite some time in person. So welcome back, Senator Mathwig. Oh. Also virtually joining us is Senator Epps. Janae Epps has also been out, and so we welcome her as well. I know she's signing on virtually, but Janae, we missed you, and we're happy to have you back. And if there's anyone else that's been missing in action, please bring it to my attention. I do not want to forget to welcome you back. Welcome back. We miss you when you're not here, so glad to have you back in action. So we are just about 16 days away from Thanksgiving break. I know if you feel like me, you're kind of feeling like things are really kind of coming together right now, good or bad. Things are just kind of getting really, really busy for all of us. And we're counting down to our Thanksgiving break. And then after that, the last day of classes is December the 3rd. And that's just about 3 weeks and 2 days away from our last day of classes. And I know a lot of our staff do take off for a little extended holiday break. So as we're winding down, I just wanted to remind you all just to remember your why. I know everybody's getting weary. Coming to a 3 o'clock meeting across campus in the middle of your day is getting to be maybe a little tougher than before. And naturally, sometimes we lose the momentum, but I'm challenging you to remember your why. Remember why we chose to serve. Remember why we do what we do. And also think about if there is something that you have going on personally or professionally that is affecting your ability to serve. We certainly welcome a conversation, and we would certainly be okay if you decided at this time you needed to take a step back. And I'm not saying that you should. I'm just saying that we understand that priorities do change, and we want you all to remain with us, but also to think about why you do what you do and how much you are able to fit on your plate. So as we go into the second half of our year, first half, we started July 1. We're almost at December. January makes the second half, and we'll go until June. So we're kind of at a halfway point, and we need a little break to rest, and we're looking forward to that. But also think about your why as you take that break. With that being said, for the December 14th meeting, many thanks to Senator Leslie, was able to get us some donations for catering. Horseshoe Catering will be donating a few items for us, food items. So we're going to end our December meeting a little early on the 14th so we can have some fun and play a game and have some fellowship. So please make plans to attend the December meeting. We will have our regular meeting time, but we'll also have some fun things. And then our community project committee will talk about a community service project that we will have on the 14th as well with some food pantry items. So make a note. And with that being said, let's go ahead and do the approval of the minutes. Any edits or changes to the minutes that were emailed? The minutes were emailed to you yesterday. Are there any from the October 14th staff Senate meeting? Can we get a motion to approve our minutes? All right, our minutes have been properly seconded and approved. So all in favor? Any opposition? All right, our minutes for the October 14th Staff Senate General Body Meeting have been received and adopted as posted. Now we're going to welcome our guest for the November meeting, Mr. Derek Gruner. He is the University Architect, Associate Vice President of Facilities Planning, Design, and Construction. Let's give him a warm Gamecock welcome. You are good to go.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me here today. I was going to talk for about, 15 minutes and try to leave some time for questions too. I used to do these presentations pretty frequently for student groups and faculty senate. I think this may be the first one I've done since before COVID. I mean, more than 18 months. It's amazing. But I'm going to run through some a really quick update on the master plan update, the last one we had, and then projects that we're thinking about right now that are in what we call planning, and then ones that are in construction. And these presentations tend to be a little bit more student focused, student experience. I hope there's enough here of interest to staff. And like I said, I welcome any questions that you might have as we go through this. So starting with the 2017 master plan. We started master planning really back in 1992, thinking about the campus as a really an entity within the city and surrounded by neighborhoods. And it was at that point that we said our opportunities for growth are really more to the west and toward the river and away from the neighborhoods. This is a very old drawing. You can see it's actually a hand drawing, not computer drawing. And then in 2007, about 15 years later, this vision came about to develop property both for the university and for commercial retail going toward the river, with Green Street being this main spine. That was way back in 2007. We finally got to take some steps toward that with the county penny tax project that developed Foundation Square near Colonial Center and started enhancing Green Street to be what you now know. If you've gone down there, you see the bike paths and the narrower traffic lanes and wider sidewalks for pedestrians. And this is an up-to-the-moment shot of this bridge that we're building over the railroad that will continue Green Street. So this is what will provide that link between the university and the river, something that has been dreamed of now since 2007 and even earlier. This is a county project. It's not a university project. It's a little behind schedule, like a lot of roadway projects that happens quite frequently. We're looking at probably middle of 2022, and then this will be open. But there's a good deal of work left to go. So with the master plan update, about every 10 years, you might have your master planner come back and listen to see what your current challenges are and what needs to be reconsidered from the previous master plan. And what this one did was it looked at what we had in mind for Campus Village down there near Bates. Also, we asked them to think about the engineering quadrangle and just some other opportunities around the campus. And I'm not going to go into too much detail of this. It would take an hour just on the master plan. But one of the themes was let's stop trying to grow the campus perimeter. Stop trying to push the campus outward, because it makes for a longer walk for students between classes. And let's look at opportunities within the campus where property is underdeveloped, meaning that maybe it's just a parking lot right now, or maybe it's a one-story building on a prime city block that needs to be replaced with something later on. So this drawing just starts to identify in the garnet color just places where we have these opportunities to do future buildings. We also, as planners, we think about the campus maybe a little differently. We look at axes or primary routes that connect one end of the campus with another. And obviously, Green Street is really our east-west thoroughfare. I mean, the Russell House is right here on Green Street, and this is what will one day connect down to the river. And that bridge that I showed you a moment ago is situated right in here. Also, though, Main Street and Marion Street is important because it will link Campus Village back to the campus. And already a lot of students walk up there from Bates, but this is another primary route. And then there was this idea about sort of an innovation tech corridor along Catawba Street. It's really too early to tell if that's going to develop or not. And also, though, one of the things that's the great hallmarks of this campus is the green spaces, right? We almost, the spaces between the buildings in a lot of ways are more memorable than the buildings itself, and that's pretty normal for a beautiful campus like ours. So where the green spaces occur is also important, that you shouldn't have to walk too far before you encounter a green space and see an outdoor space that's been carefully designed. I update this from time to time. I did it for this presentation just to show where pockets of planning and construction are going on. And as busy as this looks, I've seen it actually where almost every building had an ellipse around it. But these are the white ellipses are projects that are significant in nature, that are in planning or design, and then the yellow are projects that are in construction. And I'll touch on some of those now. Going into the planning and design piece of it, I'll talk about the big one first, the health sciences campus. Most of you probably have heard a little bit about this in the news, and this has been in the thinking for 10 to 12 years because we lease space up at the VA campus for our School of Medicine, and that lease terminates in 2030. And knowing how long it can take to conceive, get the approvals, get the funding to do the design, do the building for a project of this magnitude, we know that we need to start more than 10 years in advance of that 2030 date. So what we're looking at is a site out near Bull Street. For those of you that are familiar with this at all, the Fireflies baseball stadium is here, and I'm sure you've read in the newspapers, there's a lot of development here in what they call the Bull Street district that's bounded by Hardin and Colonial Drive. There is a site that's about 16 acres that has been donated by the developer to the university to develop the replacement for the School of Medicine at the VA Center. So this is where we'll start building a health sciences campus. And it's got close proximity with what is now Prisma Medical Campus, that's a little old, and also some land that the university controls that has medical office buildings. So the first phase will be a research building and a School of Medical Education, like an academic building, and those two will be the first phase, but there's enough property to develop future phases as we go. This shows a picture that shows the site. It's a pretty flat site. It's got beautiful views of the city in addition to its connectivity with Prisma. So we're anxious to get started on it. We're reviewing proposals now from various developer teams that will develop it, design it, and build it. A couple of other projects that might affect some of you if you work in these buildings, but maintenance has been a significant focus the last few years, the deferred maintenance in our buildings. We know that we have buildings that have aged mechanical systems and windows that leak, and sometimes we can't plug in as many space heaters as we'd like because it's not enough. 10 years. I love that building. Comprehensive renovation of the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, interior and exterior. Also, the state granted the campus about $19 million this year to renovate and address deferred maintenance in a lot of buildings. And I imagine some of these buildings are places where you work, but we're going to try to do a lot of resealing of windows in a lot of the buildings in the East Campus District. The College Street houses, if any of you work in the College Street houses? Really? No? Okay. Those need a lot of help. And then also HVAC projects in some of our classroom buildings. Also a lot of money for parking garages that the university has funded. So there's going to be a lot of work around campus in the next couple of years. Another project that I have been trying patiently to get off the ground for years, and we just don't quite have enough funding, and it's really not even our money. It's federal grants and DOT money, a little bit of university money, is this renovation of Main Street. that we want to take Main Street and do what's called a road diet, where we reduce the number of lanes because there's so little traffic on the street, and get to where we have something like this, where we have on-street parking, but trees and bike paths and wider sidewalks where you could have cafes. This should have already been under construction at this point, but we are just a little short on the dollars, and the DOT is trying to get some more dollars to address it. But this Main Street, while it is a city street, it's right in the heart of our campus now geographically. So when you look at that kind of pretty barren wasteland of parking lots and one-story buildings, it can be something so much more. And there's a lot of thoughts in mind about what uses that it could be there to serve the students. Also, I think this is the last planning project I'll show. The university acquired 300 acres of land down by the river. If you take National Guard Road all the way out toward the river, for instance, the football operations center would be over here, and Williams-Brice would be on over there where those curtains are. We're going to do intramural rec fields for students and really the whole university community, and we're going to do this in phases. But it's really quite a beautiful piece of property, and right on the river. There'll be shuttle service that will connect it. And for an urban campus like us to have this luxury of 300 acres that we can program for things like rec fields and walk paths and softball, it's pretty fortunate. I think the day will come when this will be one of the things people really remember about the University of South Carolina, is this great recreation location. So for projects that are under construction, let's see how we're doing on time here. Okay. Caroliniana Library has seemingly been under construction for forever. This is one of the very few projects that we didn't stop when COVID hit. So we had this 5-year plan that had an array of dozens and dozens of projects. And then March 2020 comes along. University starts asking existential questions about higher education and what are we going to come out on the other side of all this? And we stopped the vast majority of the capital projects, just stopped them cold in their tracks. Caroliniana, we allowed to continue because I think we had a bid in hand that was just barely in budget. And the funding for this project came from the state and a private donor. So it really wasn't our money, and the money could only be used for this project. So we let it go forward. And this is, of course, an 1840 building. It's the first freestanding university library in the United States. And it was expanded in 1927 with these wings. But this is probably the biggest renovation to this building, at least since 1927. And this reading room that you see here really is not very historically accurate to what it was in 1840. The colors are not right, and the plaster needed some repair, and the building needed a sprinkler system. So at one point during the construction of the summer, the entire reading room was full of scaffolding with people working on the ceiling and bracing the what now 181-year-old roof trusses that you see there. So a great project, also running a little behind schedule, but the dean of the libraries has been consistent. We're going to do this right, even if it takes longer. LeConte College, another project that started this summer, another one that was also, actually this one was delayed by COVID, started this past summer, and it'll be ready for fall of 22, but it's a complete renovation of this facility. And it'll be almost like a new building when the students and the faculty move back in. Campus Village, the biggest project we have under construction right now. This altogether is about a $210 million project. It'll build 4 dormitories. It'll have 1,808 beds. There will also be a dining facility. There'll be some classroom space, like a little canteen store. There'll be a Starbucks probably. This is all happening right in front of Bates. So you have Bates House here and Bates West, and it takes up the parking lot of what was once the Bates lot. And this is a rendering from Whaley Street. So this is, if you were to look down this corridor, this is Marion Street. You remember that's one of the north-south connectors I pointed out. That'll then connect to the elevated walkway by Blott and come on up by the Russell House. And the buildings are somewhat what we call transitional in style. They're not ultra contemporary, but they're not as traditional as the Horseshoe, but they take some cues from the Horseshoe. And we wanted to also be respectful of the neighborhoods and the residential architecture nearby. So this picture is really only a couple of months old when the contractor was just doing an enormous amount of site work for these 4 buildings. You can kind of see the site here in Bates West in the foreground, and the Athletics Village on down to Williams-Brice right there. So in just a matter of a couple of months, elevated slabs have been poured. You can see all these columns. They're going to support the first level. So it is going very smoothly and very efficiently. I think this is the last project I was going to show, then leave some time for questions. This one was done now, maybe almost 2 years ago. It finished up just in time for the students to not be able to use it right before COVID in January 20. And this one was really a labor of love because we took the old law school and evaluated it for its adaptability to be turned into a chemistry teaching building. That sounds a little crazy at first. Even the lab planners looked at me a little bit askance, but when it got down to it, the floor-to-floor heights were really tall. The column grid was nice and adaptable. And we created these amazing chemistry labs in this old law school and took a one-story lobby and made it 3-story that you see there and preserved the roof deck. And so from a sustainability standpoint, you know, thinking about green architecture, and this was I think one of the great accomplishments in the last 10 years because we didn't put the old building in a landfill and try to replace it. For less money, we actually renovated it and we have more space to grow into in the future. So I am 14 minutes in, so I will answer questions as long as the staff senate allows me to stand here, if anyone has any questions.
So with the questions, I'm going to give a microphone to Antonio because we won't be able to hear you online if you have any questions. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Yeah.
Hi, Derek. I just wanted to know, I work for the School of Medicine, so when do you project that the transition from the VA to the new building?
Developing medical schools like this seem to take about 5 years to program it. And when we say program, we mean talking to lots of stakeholders in a very inclusive process to learn what needs to be in this building. How do we want to teach students? How do we want to do the research? That's called programming. And then the design, we need more state and board of trustee approvals. And then we go through the cost, effort, and then probably about 2 years to build it. So I'm projecting about 5 years from now, be around the time. And projects that are this big and this complex are often subject to delays for one reason or another. Campus Village, there was a point at which we thought Campus Village would be done in 2020, I think, and then it became 2021, then it became 2022 because of COVID. That was also delayed, and now it's on track for 23. I expect a little bit of that could happen with School of Medicine, but hope not.
Hey, Brad Holt. There's been a little bit of talk recently about hoteling space for staff as we think about telecommuting and what that's going to look like in the future.
Yeah.
You're the kind of person that might be doing planning on that, and just curious if kind of where you are, what your thoughts are, what you think is reasonable. Is there something we're not thinking about that's an obstacle, that type of stuff?
That's a fantastic question. I've been talking a lot about hoteling to anyone that will listen, deans, because I just don't see this paradigm of everyone having their own office and maybe only spending 2 days a week in that office. I just don't see how that can continue in higher education. We need to find ways to not build new space, take better care of the space we have, and then optimize the use. So when I look at faculty that might only be on campus 2 days a week because their classes are Tuesday, Thursday, and I think about the office being there that we're conditioning all through the week, I get to thinking, is there some way that offices can be shared, or this hoteling concept where people are working partially at home and then coming into campus occasionally, they just need a place to kind of land with their laptop and they plug in and they're completely effective. Sometimes I'll hear that, well, faculty need private offices for private counseling with the students. I say, yes, but you can also have small conference rooms near those. So this is going to take a long time. I think the younger faculty are more likely to start to embrace this. And we may never get to a point where tenured faculty and senior faculty are willing to give up their offices, and maybe they shouldn't. But I do think collectively, not just faculty, but staff need to be thinking about ways to share space, maybe have more open office, collaborative studio environments. And I'm standing before you today, not just talking about it, but walking the walk. When my department moves to a new location down near Bomber Stadium in kind of a industrial facilities building we're doing, no one, including myself, is going to have an office. We're going to all have an open studio kind of concept where everybody's got a desk and there's sort of a zone defined for them, but I can stand up and see everyone in my group, and we'll have little conference rooms to go and talk if we need to talk privately. So the cost of energy and utilities and electricity and all the things that one thing that might surprise people is you hear about the cost of what it costs to build a building, right? Big numbers. But when you look at the life of a building over, say, 50, 60, 80 years, that initial cost is minuscule compared to the cost of operating that building over its life. So when we build a new building, because maybe we have this demand from our office space, we're obligating ourselves to a much bigger price tag than just the cost of that building over the life of that building. So these are all just things I think about, because I don't think the current model for higher education is sustainable. And that's not just USC, that's everybody.
Hi, Brian Hall, College of Engineering and Computing. There's another half of the old law school building that faces Main Street that's not currently in use.
Right.
Are there any plans you can share with us for that space?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that. So there's actually two zones. There's the old law school auditorium, and there's a 3-story tower that's got about 50,000 square feet that is just a shell right now. That was one of the nice byproducts of saving the old law school, because it's almost 200,000 square feet. So we knew that we could satisfy the chemistry program, but still have space left for future academic expansion. So we hope to maybe have some funding to renovate that shell. It's in our plans, but we're hoping to get some either state or federal funding or private funding too. It's a pretty attractive opportunity for a donor. So I truly hope in the next 5 years or so we see some movement on that. The auditorium is on a faster track. We've looked at the auditorium and we'd like to return that to a classroom use. We're tentatively aiming for fall of 23 on that. We want to replace the furniture, put in a new HVAC system. There's some abatement that needs to be done. We need to sprinkle that part of the building. And I'm excited about that. For one thing, it's like 430 seats. It'd be a big classroom that we need. But it's right on Main Street too. So how cool would it be if we could open doors in the evening, have it be a theater, to be an additional theater for the students to augment this? Because right now this is really the only theater on campus. And so I think it'd be a great use for that too. So auditorium, hopefully 2023.
Hey there. Thank you so much for being here. I represent Student Affairs and Academic Support, and a lot of our work happens right here in this building. And we have had needs for a long time for a new union. And I know that wasn't talked about today. You talked a little bit about the union, where we're at and what that might look like.
Yeah. So we completed a feasibility study, probably, as you probably know, about 2 years ago. It was starting to get some momentum. We were getting ready to present it to trustees, and COVID hit, and they sort of lost its momentum. It's getting talked about again. The study ultimately concluded that the best bang for the buck was to probably replace the west wing with a bigger footprint and then do a comprehensive renovation elsewhere in the Russell House. That was the thinking, that for the money that we realistically thought we could bring to the project from a combination of sources, that would create the biggest impact. Without going into too much detail, though, there's still some other thoughts about other locations for facilities that would augment the Russell House. I mean, the Russell House is in exactly the right place on campus. It's never going anywhere. It's just we're also still exploring ways of picking up student union type square footage in other locations. I'm not directly answering your question because I don't have an exact answer, but I can tell you that it's becoming a priority again with the leadership. So I hope to see in 2022 some momentum.
I'm Tyson Lesk. I work in athletics. One of the feedback we get from donors as fans is, can we do anything on that corridor from Assembly and Whaley to George Rogers? Is that in our campus footprint, or would that be a public-private partnership? Is there, I don't know who controls that land, but is that on the forefront, or is that more of a, we need to work with private entities to revamp that? And you mentioned the Bomber Stadium, so. Yeah,
so what do you mean, vertical development, like buildings, or just making sidewalks and making greater connectivity to the stadium?
I think folks would be happy with either.
Yeah. Well, we don't own most of that land. Where facilities is relocating to is sort of along that corridor. It's right in front of Bomber Stadium. But it's kind of industrial now, and it's going to probably remain a little bit industrial for a while. The county at one point was looking to have a multimodal path, sidewalks for pedestrians and bikes from Rosewood to the stadium. I haven't heard anything about that in a couple of years. I don't know if that's still a priority for them, but No, there's really not anything in the master plan that would take university funding and resources to develop that corridor. But I do hear complaints from trustees that drive to the football games and say, this really just doesn't look like what we would want guests to our city to see. And I agree with that. There is a project to develop Bomber Stadium. It's been in the works for years. I think it's finally going to move forward. It's going to be retail and student housing and stream restoration through there. As far as I know, that's going to happen. Other land down that way is for sale and seems pretty ripe for development. So look at it again in 10 years. It may look a little different. Personally, I can't wait for the day that I can bike to the stadium. Yeah.
Hello, I'm Angela Wright. I work in the College of HRSM. And two questions. One, are they going to replace the elevators in close hip? Those things are hard. I don't work on the 8th floor, so
Yeah, I know.
praying every time I'm in the elevator. And then the second question, is there any plans for the Coliseum yet?
Oh, that's a good question too. I knew someone was going to ask that as I was thinking about it yesterday. As far as the elevators go, yeah, I know they're not great. I haven't heard that they're so bad that they need to be replaced, but I do think there is a project to replace some of the controls. I think I just heard about that. And Derek does a lot of our work, a project manager in close hip, and has done all the work for HRSM. And I think that there is. If you can contact me, I'll try to get you a better answer on that and see what Ann had in mind for that. Yeah. I think there is something in the works. I just don't know to what extent. I mean, for example, at Capstone, I think they have 3 elevators, and that's a taller building, but they're going to be doing an elevator upgrade. It's $1.6 million to do those 3 elevators. So elevators are expensive. The Coliseum, I think the Coliseum's reason to be for the next 5 to 8 years probably is going to be continuing to use it for swing space. Because when we take a building like LeConte, it's almost impossible to renovate this building if you don't have someplace to move the staff to. So the Coliseum is going to really fill that role well for the foreseeable future, because following behind LeConte, we have plans to do renovations at Swearingen and 300 Main, Burns, Barnwell perhaps, and we need a place to move the faculty and the staff to. So and also on the lower level, of course, it's also the basketball practice facility, and the coaches they don't want to hear anything about their building coming down if there's no alternative plan. So we have looked at schemes to adaptively repurpose the Coliseum. We looked at it for the student union, and it is unbelievably costly to adapt what used to be a basketball arena to become an office space or a classroom space. It appears to be prohibitively expensive. So I think it's just going to continue to sit there and be used the way it has been until something really compelling comes along, because boy, it is a great piece of real estate. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
For coming.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome anytime.
Okay.
Feel free to pop by. There we go. Thank you. Now we're going to hear from our reports of officers. Senator Leslie, do you have a report? No report. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to our reports of the committees as needed. If you do not have a report, just let us know for the record that you do not have a report, but we'll start with membership committee. And so you don't have to come up the steps. You can come up here, or you can get a microphone. Just let us know which. Lena's ready. I'm ready.
Good afternoon. I'm giving this report on behalf of my co-chair, Vanessa Berry, who is out today, but she is joining us remotely. The membership committee is now working on clarifying the staff senate officer election process. What we did is we created a timeline efficient with dates. However, we discovered some tidbits that need some updating, so we sent a few suggestions to the bylaws committee on October 26th. I know that they're in this room, and I believe Kim has been in communication with Vanessa, and we look forward to having that updated so we can go ahead and update our timeline and then share it to the broader audience of Staff Senate. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to have our communications committee, Senator Watts or Senator Angelo Duck. No report. Thank you. Staff policy and well-being, Senator Colessione.
Just wanted to update everyone that we are waiting on human resources to get back to us about what is happening with the staff benefits feedback that we collected from you all, where they are going to share with us whether certain benefits we can move forward with or try to advocate for, or if there's benefits that might be harder based off the structure of the state system. So we will update you all as soon as we hear back, as well as just to update everyone that you should have received an email from HR as well regarding the 4 new policy supplemental benefits policies that were added this November. There are 2 dates to learn more about these policies. And so I really encourage you to share that with your constituents to make sure that people are attending those sessions if they're interested to learn more about what that policy might do for themselves and their families. And again, it's universal life with long-term care, short-term disability, critical illness / cancer, as well as accident insurance. And so those are pretty big and great that we're adding those to the docket for USC, but please make sure your staff are attending these meetings if they are interested in potentially adding that to their benefits. Thanks.
Thank you. Professional development, Senator Kupfer or Senator Sims? Is there a report? No report. Thank you. Community project, Senator Fortune, Senator Hilton. Hilson, excuse me.
Thanks. I am just going to give a few updates that we have. Joe is not able to be with us right now. So for our next meeting in December, we would like to encourage everyone on Staff Senate, if you are able and willing, to bring one, if you would like to do that, donation for the Gamecock Pantry. We will send out additional information about what they're seeking, but we just know, especially with the holidays coming up, they can always use additional help with that. And then in addition to that, we are going to be sending out an inventory. It's a very simple Excel document for you and anyone in your staff specifically to let us know what you're already doing. I know we've mentioned this a couple of times, but it's basically a place for you to tell us what you're already participating in as an office, as a unit, as a department, et cetera, so that we can, 1, recognize the great work that we've already been doing as staff members, but then 2, that we can also plug other staff members into the opportunities that we're already a part of. Specifically within the community. And then last but definitely not least, just a quick update on we're calling it the Top 5 Drive, but we are planning to have an event that we basically will be showcasing in February as a larger food drive to benefit the Gamecock Pantry, as again, that does not only benefit our students, but also staff members that we will be specifically spearheading. So just more information to come with that in the future, but be on the lookout for notes in the minutes and how you can contribute to that. Do you have any questions from anybody? All right, thank you.
So just to reiterate, for the December meeting, you like for us to bring at least one donation item for the Gamecock Pantry, and we'll email that out. Thank you. Bylaws, Senator Hart or Senator Rose? No report today. We have an ad hoc committee. Well, we had an ad hoc committee. Angela will give you more information. Senator Wright, we want to talk about that breakfast, Staff Senate breakfast update.
Yes. So good afternoon. I attended one of the committee meetings for the planning of the MLK breakfast in January. However, they already had a committee already planned, already set up, so they didn't initially need our help with that part. However, they will need our help probably the day of for the event. It will still be held on that Friday before MLK Day. The event will be held here in the Russell House again. The space at the Founders spot at the stadium was not available at this time. And so I will let you all know in what ways that we can contribute to that event, and also think about ways that we can have any other like roundtable discussions or anything like that for Black History Month, as well as for the MLK events in January that we could host on behalf of the Office of DEI. And that's about it. So anybody have any questions or comments? All right.
So we are disbanding the ad hoc Senate Breakfast Committee. I don't know if we need to make a motion. We don't need it in the way that we thought we did. Okay, we don't. Okay. We thought that let me stand up. We thought that we needed a staff Senate ad hoc committee for the breakfast because there were some thoughts that there would be a change in the way that the breakfast was, the way we have our MLK breakfast every year for staff. However, we will see more of a continuation of what we've done in the past, but we are looking at ways to make changes to the MLK months this year. I think that will span January and February. And that's what Angela will give us more information about. So just wanted to make clarification there. Now down to our order of business. Senator Ramsey, History Implementation Committee.
Hello, everyone. I don't have I just have a brief update. So the committee met. Can you hear me? The committee met twice to kind of discuss recommendations that were put forth from the History Commission in their report as it relates to education and research. And I'll share with you some of the educational action items and research items that we kind of discussed. The development of an educational outreach component to include workshops and curriculum development opportunities for high school and collegiate instructors. Lesson plans may be hosted on the university history website. They were thinking of producing a booklet to be issued during the student orientation that provides a brief, inclusive, and illustrated history of the University of South Carolina. Working with Walking Cinema to develop virtual walking tours based on sections of campus, time periods, and subjects, such as slavery, desegregation, and women's history. This is the same company that worked with the University of South Carolina Beaufort's Institute for the Study of the Reconstruction Era to develop the Free and Equal. Also, another one would be that we discussed was to encourage faculty to develop and teach academic courses on the history of the university and/or incorporate research on the history of the university. And another one that I thought was really interesting was to create an exhibit panel for each building, providing the history of the building and a fuller biography of its namesake. So we kind of discussed these for the educational action items. As it relates to research, we had a separate meeting and we basically just looked at and discussed long-term sustainable funding resources and how can we acquire them and what does that look like, and as it relates to grant funding and such, and also to have continued dedicated and funded research of names on the buildings and the landscape. And in terms of academia, it was funding a dedicated postdoctoral position for 2 to 3 years to conduct oral histories with faculty, staff, students, alumni, as well as large community members to document their memories of and experiences with the university. So we kind of just discussed these ideas, and we haven't really developed an action plan to put before the board because we're trying to prioritize what is doable and what's not and what's most important. But this is where we are at the stages of moving forward with our group. That's all I have.
All right, does anybody have any questions on any of the reports that were reported out? Any of the information that was given? Okay, now we're down to just kind of the announcements or for the good of the order. Does anyone have anything that they want to bring before the body? It's an open opportunity. Yes. I think, do they need to use this one too, Antonio? I mean, do they need this one or that one? Oh, okay.
Okay, so I'm Angela Wright, this is Senator Pelosione, and we are going to talk about the need for a staff ombudsperson for the university. Currently, the University of South Carolina does not have a staff ombudsperson. We have one for faculty, one for students, for undergraduate students, as well as one for graduate students. But we do not have an ombudsperson for the staff. This idea came up a few years ago as we were planning the staff senate. And last week, I met with Julian Williams, who is our vice president of DEI, and talked with him about the concern and the need for a staff ombudsperson. In a recent survey done by the communications committee, one of the bullet points was that staff don't have a place where they can address their needs and concerns in a confidential manner. So he said that that was definitely a need, and he had already been talking about that with some of the leadership here at the university. After that, I had already done some research. There are several colleges and universities here in South Carolina that currently have a staff ombudsperson, including Clemson University, Winthrop, and a couple of other smaller schools here in South Carolina that have a combination staff and faculty ombudsperson. So last week, or a couple of weeks ago, Megan Colosione reached out to me, and so we met via Teams regarding planning to have and put forth a proposal for a staff ombudsperson to HR and to other leadership here. Just so you know, the ombudsperson serves as a neutral and impartial person here at the university. They meet with faculty anyway. They meet with faculty in strict confidentiality. The faculty ombudsperson is a neutral person. He only attends meetings when asked to attend meetings. He doesn't save any information. Everything is strictly confidential. He shreds everything at the end of each week. And so it's just a place where faculty can voice their concerns with another faculty or any other situation. If anything needs to be told outside of that particular venue, it's only if it's going to be a harm to that particular faculty person or harm to another person or individual. But outside of that, about 99% of the inquiries or communication that is shared with the faculty ombudsperson is strictly confidential. We met with him on yesterday. His name is Jim Augustine. He meets mainly with people outside of the university. He doesn't usually meet here on campus to keep the confidentiality. We usually meet at a restaurant or somewhere in between campus with the actual faculty member. And so we are looking into establishing a staff ombudsperson here at the university. I'll let Megan talk more about that part.
Sure. So we have 6,000 staff on campus, right, give or take. And we don't have someone that can stand for us in a neutral and impartial, confidential, and in an informal way. This role is really about providing staff an opportunity to meet with this individual and or team based off how many staff we have on campus. And they sit with them and talk through all the options that they can navigate any kind of circumstance at work or at the university that they're navigating. So it could go from how to deal with a situation at hand to even to an exit strategy for that staff member. The difference here is that it's not, again, it's separate completely from human resources. So it is a person that serves truly as that advocate for the staff and what is best for their needs and what they're doing. Everyone has different life circumstances that they're dealing with and situations. And so this person really just helps map out the next steps for that person. So the next steps that we have, we are going to be benchmarking just in depth our peer institutions, our peer aspirant institutions, as well as other SEC institutions. We are then going to figure out what it might look like here at UofSC with the structure, because again, this doesn't report to any one specifically at all. It's kind of its own floating unit typically in what you see at other structures at other universities. And so we do want to reach out to staff senators to see if you are interested in helping with this initiative, if this is something where you might know or have insight from different colleagues that you might know at other institutions. But we are trying to then put this forth eventually to this committee to look at and help create and establish with leadership at the institution this role that is so needed for staff to have.
Also, the faculty ombudsperson is a member of the International Ombudsman Association. There is a professional group, and so he attends the conferences and any kind of training, but he's a certified ombudsperson, and he said he connects with different people around the country at different universities about the ombudsman role.
And then last and least, the reporting categories come from this International Ombudsman Association that you all could look up if you're interested in learning more. But they actually report. There are 8 reporting categories, uniform reporting categories, and that is actually what our faculty ombudsman here reports on if you go to that website and check it out. So we are trying to build something similar for staff. But again, we are looking to you to see if you are interested in helping Angela and I create this and figure out how we can get it to leadership to advocate for our staff in a different way. This is going to come as an early update to the Staff Policy and Wellbeing Committee to see if that's something of interest to take on as a committee as well. But again, we want to open this to the whole Senate to see if there is anyone interested in helping with this.
And I think that's all we have. Do we have any questions or comments? All right, great.
Yeah, please connect with us after this if you are interested or if you want to connect with just different resources. Thank you so much.
For that information. Are there any other announcements for the good of the order? Anybody else wants to highlight anything that we may have seen, heard, observed, want the staff center to speak on or brainstorm about? This would be the time to bring it up. All right. Well, there seems not to be anything else for today's meeting. I'm going to move to adjourn. We need a move to adjourn. Moved and properly seconded that we are adjourning 3:50 p.m. And we'll see you all again on December 14th. Have a good one. Happy holidays. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
I'm going to grab my phone.